What's up guys, Travis from AmericanTrucks.com, and today we're checking out Barricade's very cool Pinnacle 4-inch bent end side step bars fitting your 2019 or newer crew cab Ram 1500. Now, these 4-inch wide steps are what I would consider a premium option in the 4-inch category. It goes without saying that other options that'll cost less than this are typically going to be 3 inches in diameter or even smaller than that, or they'll be made out of a basic carbon steel, or you might have a simple tube step design that wraps around the cab itself, which uses 2 brackets to mount instead of 3. And it goes without saying that a round tube step is going to give a little bit less real estate for you to get your foot on there compared to something like this. And guys, even though these steps cost a little bit more than other 4-inch options, I'm a huge fan of them for one primary reason. And it's not even the functionality, because let's face it, a 4-inch step is a 4-inch step no matter how you slice it. The reason why I really like these is because they basically look like a factory upgrade. Barricade really took the time to match the polish on these guys with the wheels and the front and rear bumpers on our Bighorn here. And if you take a closer look, this non-slip pad, the texture on it and the overall design of it pretty much closely matches all the grip pads on the rear bumper. So this thing looks right at home on our truck. Looks like something you purchased from the factory, which implies that even though this is a more expensive step, you paid a lot more than you really did. And honestly, for a little over $300 for stainless steel with all 3 heavy-duty brackets under there, that's a pretty good price. And then the install is also very easy too, because thankfully Mopar was finally nice enough to throw some hardware under there for side steps. That means we don't have to drill any holes or do any cutting or anything crazy like that. You can literally install these with 1 socket and a ratchet. So for that reason, I'm going to give these a very simple 1 out of 3 wrenches on the old difficulty meter. Honestly guys, it shouldn't take you more than an hour or two. 2 hours is really cutting it. That's if you're really taking your time and going slow. These are incredibly simple. If you've never thrown a mod on your truck before, this is a good way to get your feet wet. And again, nice way to make getting out of that cab a little bit easier. So go ahead and consider Barricade's Pinnacle steps a little bit more. Decide if you really like them or not. If you do stick with these over the other options, come back to this video in a little bit. I'll show you guys which tools you need exactly. I'm going to show you just how easy it is to throw these things on your truck. All right, all we really need to install our side steps is a standard drive ratchet with a 13mm deep socket. Now, if this is your first time crawling underneath your Ram, which it probably is, then the factory studs might have some paint on them for the nuts that we have to use for our brackets. So you definitely want some brake cleaner, maybe some paint thinner and a wire brush. Clean up those threads. That way you're not cross-threading anything or ruining the studs themselves. And we are working with nylon locking nuts, so an impact gun will make the job go a little bit quicker. If you do use an impact gun, I'd recommend a swivel socket because it's kind of a tight fit in there. Once you got your tools out, you want to grab that first bracket and go ahead and crawl underneath the truck. We're going to be working on the rocker panel and pinch seam area. There are 3 studs that have already been installed at the factory. The bracket's just going to slide directly onto there, and you'll be using these nylon locking nuts as well as the flat washers provided in the kit, and you're going to need a 13mm deep socket to tighten all this stuff down. So go ahead and throw our flat washers on there first. And you can probably tighten down the bracket as soon as you get all this stuff on there. You don't really need to leave this loose. There's a little bit of play back and forth, so if we need to make any final adjustments, once we get our step bolted down, we can just crawl underneath here, loosen these up, and make the adjustment as necessary. But go ahead and get all that hardware hand threaded on here. And if this is the first time you're working with these studs under here, by the way, they probably have some factory paint on them. So you want to spray that down with some brake cleaner or whatever and try and get some of that paint off of there. It's going to help make sure you don't cross-thread any of these nuts when you tighten them down. All right, we're going to do the same thing for the other 2. Alright, now that we have all of our brackets installed, go ahead and do the same thing for the other side of the truck. Then comes the fun part, and that's actually getting our steps in place. There are some pre-drilled holes on the back of the step, 2 for each bracket. All you need to do is throw the step up, align the holes with the holes in the bracket. Then you're going to grab those hex bolts provided in the kit with the flat washers pre-installed. Go ahead and get all those hand threaded. Then we'll tighten everything down with a 13mm socket. That should wrap up our install today. Alright, so once you got the step lined up, go ahead and take a step back, no pun intended. Double check that the non-slip pads are located where you want them underneath the doors, and if you need to make any minor adjustments, go ahead and loosen up some of that hardware, slide it around a little bit, you should be good to go. That'll wrap up the install. It also wraps up my review of the Barricade Pinnacle 4-inch bent end side steps fitting your 2019 or newer Crew Cab Ram 1500. Be sure to check them out more on the site, and for all things Ram, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.